Okay, assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Hope you are all well, wherever you're joining us from. Okay, before I have a look at the chat, let me just get my slides ready. Share screen. Where'd it go? Okay, where is it? There we go. It's this one. Okay, let's put it like this for now. All right, okay. All righty then. Sorry about the delay. I'm actually feeling a little bit sick today. Bit of a headache and a little bit of a cough too. But I thought, no, I want to make sure I do it today. Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad. How are you? Good to see you. Brad Childers. That's the first time we've seen you here. How are you? Hope you are well. Thank you so much. All right, Iron Man is here as well. All right, okay. So let's get this going. So I thought I'd do a very quick, hopefully it'll be quick today. When was it? 2 weeks ago, the last stream was quite long. We were discussing Jahil and Hilm. And I was just mentioning that I think that the Jahil is on the rise. Jahil is on the rise in terms of just the way people behave, especially online, and a lot of people get their information online and they interact online. But online, people seem to behave more in this Jahili way than they do in person. And so that's as much as the modern technology has opened up the way for us to learn and communicate with so many people all around the world, it's also unleashed, I think, or increased this side of people, or at least it's happened because of some some personalities which others are looking up to, or something like that. But as much as it's opened up how much we can learn, it can also have, because of Jahil, it can have the opposite effect where people can get really what do you call it, hardened into stances of rejection of what they don't know, without considering it properly, just having this Jahili attitude. So I thought I'd look at an example of that I saw pretty recently. So there are some questions which, of course, people bring up to try to knock down the Quran, is in essence, try to knock it down and say that it's not sufficient by asking these kind of questions. Sometimes they're done sincerely. A lot of the times they're not. So like the ever-present gotcha questions, like how do you pray without hadiths, right? That's all that gets asked all the time in the Quran subreddit. You get that question comes every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. It comes up a lot. Okay. So with the Quran, only ask you how can you pray. And again, it's just an attempt to show, they ask that question, not really wanting an answer, but just an attempt to show that the Quran is not sufficient on its own. Okay. But of course, these people also say that the Quran is a miracle. You'll often find they will talk a lot when they can talk very eloquently about how miraculous the Quran is. It has all of this knowledge and this, etc. But somehow, if it's not miraculous enough to do the one thing it's supposed to do, which is guidance. In any case, one such question is, so tell me, what are the 4 sacred months according to, just using the Quran alone? Okay. So somebody will ask that, tell me, what are the 4 sacred months according? It's supposed to be a gotcha question. Okay. They're not really looking for an answer. Okay. So of course they're usually not really asking. Okay. And you can tell that by their tone, by how they write, or by how they speak it. They're not interested in looking at the question purely from the Quran, from a place of receiving, with an empty cup. Okay, which is why usually their Jahil will take over then. Okay, no matter what you try to show them the Quranic perspective on this issue, okay, their Jahil, it takes over and it falls on deaf ears. They're like, no, 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 no. Tell me exactly what are the 4 sacred months according to the Quran. And because of course they know it's not there, we know it's not there. It's like an attempt to try to corner you. But in the end, it's an attempt to try to drag down the Quran, but they don't see it. Okay, they're blind to that. Okay, so the answer they want, okay, isn't in the Quran. Okay, so the answers the Quran gives, okay, they will reject. Okay, because they already have their cup full. They have no space for it. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, the primary verse about the sacred months is this verse. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم ذلك الدين القيم فلا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم وقاتلوا المشركين كافة كما يقاتلون كافة واعلموا أن الله مع المتقين. Okay, so it says indeed the number of months, and I've emphasized here the number. I don't know if you can see it in bold. Does it look very bold to you? But anyway, the number of months with Allah is 12. Okay, of course they've added here lunar months, but it just says 12 months. Okay, and here they say in the register of Allah, in the kitab of Allah. Okay, on the day that He created the heavens and the earth. Of these, 4 are sacred. Of these, 4 are sacred. Okay, and that is the deen, the deen al-qayyim. I think I deleted a word by mistake here because I changed religion to deen. It shouldn't be also that's the sort of like the upright deen. Okay, ذلك الدين القيم. So do not wrong yourselves during them. Okay, and the next part makes it clear that it's about fighting. Okay, so even though you're not supposed to wrong yourself within them, nevertheless, okay, if you are fought, then fight back. Okay, so it says here وقاتلوا, and fight the mushrikeen all together, just as they fight you all together collectively. Okay, but know that Allah is with the muttaqeen, the people of taqwa. Okay, those who have taqwa. We've talked many times about taqwa, that the basis of taqwa is this, to prevent harm and aggression. Okay, that's the basis of it. Okay, so one thing to note about this surah is that, of course, it's not the first time that the sacred months or sacred month is mentioned in the Quran. It's also mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, which is the second. It's the first surah revealed in Medina, right? The first surah that started to be revealed in Medina was Surah Al-Baqarah, whereas this surah, Surah Al-Tawbah, is the penultimate surah. It's the second to last surah to be revealed. Okay, so only here Allah is talking about telling the Muslim community about the 4 sacred months. Okay, so why is that important? Well, that's important in certain terms of historically. It shows that they were known. Okay, so the sacred months before then were known among the Arabs. Okay, they knew what what the sacred months that they had. And they knew there were 4. Okay, and here it's just being confirmed sort of at the end of the Prophet's life almost. Okay, there are 4 months. Okay, but the important thing in this verse is the focus. Okay, the focus is on the numbers. If you just look at it, it says inna iddat ash-shuhur. Okay, don't just say inna ash-shuhur inda Allah 12. It's the the months in God's sight are 12. It says in iddat ash-shuhur, okay, the number, okay, the number of months with God is 12, okay, and 4 of them are hurum, okay, and this, of course, is 12 in God's sight is on the day that He created the heavens and the earth, okay. So this is at the beginning of creation, okay, and it's obvious why, of course, 12 months, because especially if you take it as lunar months, which we do, it takes that long, 12, for the earth to go around the sun, okay. And from these 12, we are told 4 are sacred, but they are not specified. We're not told which 4 are sacred. So what does that mean? Okay. Well, this means primarily that the number is what's important. The number is what's important, not the specific months, this month and that month and that month. So which is it isn't very important. Which are the 4 sacred months isn't as important. This is, I think, where a lot of the sort of the Quranists, Quranists sort of fall down, in the same way as they fall down when it comes to Salah. They try to find, for those who believe in that Salah is a ritual Salah, they try to find the method of Salah in the Quran, okay, when it's clearly not there, okay. And in the same way, the 4 sacred months are not mentioned in the Quran, okay, and that is deliberate, okay, and part of the wisdom is to accept that, okay. Part of receiving guidance from the Quran is to accept the Quran as it is, okay. So it says 4 are sacred. We are not told which 4. That's important, okay. It's important that we are not told which 4, okay. It's important that we are told it's 4. What does that mean? It means it's the number that's important, okay. Next thing is, this, of course, was long before, okay. So when 12, from these 12 months, 4 sacred. This is long before. This is when when God created the heavens and the earth. So before Ibrahim alayhi salam, and before Ismail and him raised the Kaaba, and before Hajj, and before the Arabs named their 12 months, okay, and before the 4 sacred months that the Islamic tradition recognized, which the Arabs knew, okay. Before all of that, there were still 4 sacred months, okay, and this is why they're not named, because then they weren't always the same, okay. They didn't have to be the same, I should say, okay. The specific 4 sacred months, so of course, the ones that are known, right? So Dhil Qa'ida, Dhil Hijjah, and Muharram, those 3, okay. And then Rajab, okay, the 4th one, which is separate. So those 3 are together, and Rajab is separate. These specific 4 months that the Arabs had were part of their own urf, okay. And a lot of the times in the Quran, things are by al-ma'ruf, what is known, okay. And the 4 sacred months were known to the Arabs, okay. Like we said, 3 of them were chosen, and likely by Ibrahim himself, okay, for Hajj, okay. And they were chosen to be able to allow people to go on Hajj, because what is the purpose of the sacred months? Okay, is it exactly Hajj? No. Well, it has a more universal goal than Hajj, okay, because again, there were 4 sacred months before Ibrahim and before Hajj. So what's important about them isn't the specific months, but their number, and that there must be 4 sacred months, and their purpose, okay, which is to provide a respite from fighting and wars, right? To let people remember peace, okay, so that people can remember the blessings of peace, security, and safe travel, okay. And so that maybe in that time also negotiations can happen, okay, they could take place, and perhaps an end of conflicts, okay. There are supposed to be periods of complete de-escalation, as people would say now, when some fighting starts up, usually, of course, fighting that happens up in with Israel attacking Gaza Strip or West Bank or something, and then Hamas firing rockets, etc. People talk, let's de-escalate. Let's have a period of de-escalation. Okay, it could be still a period of war. The two countries could still be in war, but we say let's have a period of de-escalation. Just stop all the fighting. Why? It just allows the hotter heads to cool down, and perhaps the cooler heads to prevail. okay, and then perhaps bring an end to the fighting, okay. That's the purpose of the sacred months, okay, the universal purpose of them, right? Within that, because Hajj is an important rite and it's happening within Arabia, right? That for the Arabs, very important that anybody coming into, wanting to come to Hajj, it's to do so within months which are safe. Okay, so within sacred months. So that's likely why the three sacred months around Hajj were chosen after Ibrahim. Okay, probably almost definitely by Ibrahim himself, alayhi salam, okay, or Ismail alayhi salam. But because they are linked with the Hajj, okay, those 3 months were chosen. Okay, that's when those 3 months were chosen, made sacred, not made sacred, but those three were chosen in order to give a space, a safe time around Hajj for people to be able to travel, for any fighting to stop, so that anybody who wants to go to do Hajj can go and come back in peace. A month to get there, maybe. Stay in Mecca around a month to leave. All right, 3 months is plenty of time. Okay, so that was and is their universal purpose. Long before Islam and Hajj, it is part of al-Din al-Qayyim. Okay, which again doesn't include the Hajj of Ibrahim. Okay, so doing the Hajj of Ibrahim, it's not part of al-Din al-Qayyim, right? يقيم الصلاة ويؤتي الزكاة ذلك الدين القيم. Okay, and when in Surah Al-Bayyinah, when Din al-Qayyim is mentioned, Hajj is not part of it. Okay, the Hajj is not part, because the Din al-Qayyim existed before Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay, and also the sacred months existed before Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay, now, and so that purpose can be so that the purpose of Hajj could be accomplished. The 4 sacred months were selected in that way. Okay, so another way to see how which 4 months is not relevant is how a Nasi is criticized in the Qur'an. Okay, so what is the Nasi? Well, this, there's a lot of controversy about it. People say that Nasi is actually a month that is supposed to be put in into the lunar months every, I don't know how many years, in order to realign them with the solar calendar. We don't really see that in this verse. Okay, so what does this verse say? It says إنما النسيء زيادة في الكفر. Okay, so nasi comes from the word like forget, to forget, or to sort of like postpone or leave it, or deliberately forget something, deliberately leave something out. Nasi. Okay. Here they've put it as postponing, and that's sort of fine. Okay, indeed, the postponing of the restriction within the sacred months, they put here, is an increase in kufr, by which those who have kafaru are led further astray. They make it halal one year and haram another year, to trample down the number made haram by Allah. Now I've changed the translation here to trample down. لِيُوَاطِئُوا عِدَّةَ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. Okay, so the verse says إنما النسيء زيادة في الكفر يضل به الذين كفروا يحلونه عاما ويحرمونه عاما. Okay, they make it halal on in one year, and they make it haram in another. ليواطئوا عدة ما حرم الله. Okay, ليواطئ. This is like the word al-Muwatta. The Muwatta of Imam Malik. Why was it named Muwatta? Because it was confirmed, but the word comes from trodden, like when you trod on something. Okay, trample on something. Wata. Okay, to press down on something. Okay, so it says, what did they do? لِيُوَاطِئُوا عِدَّةَ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. Okay, what is being criticized? Okay, that they trample down the number of what Allah has made haram. The number. What's key? The number. لِيُوَاطِئُوا عِدَّةَ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. What's the iddah that Allah has made haram? It's 4. Okay, 4 months. 4 months Allah has made haram. Okay, and they trample that down. Okay, and how? So they make halal, فَيْحِلُّ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. So of these 4 months, they make some of them halal. Okay, meaning they allow fighting in some of them. Okay, so they've decreased that those from those 4 months, which is supposed to be for peace and to bring back a semblance of balance, reduce the conflicts, they remove that. Okay, so there's an increase in conflicts. Okay, and they do that, of course, to continue any war that they might be engaged in. Okay. زين لهم سوء أعمالهم والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. Okay, and God does not guide kafirin people. Of course, I forgot to change this. Shouldn't be kafirin. It should be an ungrateful people, because they're a very good, great blessing to have these 4 sacred months. 4 sacred months in which there's going to be peace. Peace is a blessing. Okay, but these people are being ungrateful for that. Which is the closest translation to for kufur is more related to ungratefulness. Okay, to being ingrate. But the emphasis here is all on the number and on making the haram halal, not making the halal haram. So I think the traditional idea about the Nasi is that they would shift it around. Okay, that for example, on this year they want to continue fighting, and they say, oh no, the sacred month is coming. We need somebody to change that around. We'll move the sacred month to be in another month. Okay, or maybe next year. Right, but if that was the case, they would not only be making what is halal, they would not only be making what is haram halal, they would also be making something else which was halal, okay, haram. Okay, and that isn't what's being mentioned. What's being mentioned in the Quran is that they فَيَحِلُّ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهِ, they make halal what Allah has made haram. Okay, meaning they are not, again, they are not shifting the months. They're not shifting the months. Okay, they're not making up the count, as the translations usually say about this verse. No, لِيُوَاطِئُوا عِدَّةَ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهِ means they trample down the number which God has made haram. Okay, so they were not swapping them around within a year or adding them to another. Okay, they are being criticized for making making a haram month halal. So instead of there being in the year 4 sacred months, in that year there'd be only 3 or 2. Right, so they're reducing the number. They're reducing the number. The number is the key. Right, and of course, why did they did it? Did they do that in order to continue with their fighting, and thus overturn the very purpose of 4 sacred months? Okay, and in Arabia, among the Arabs, that also meant barring others from the Masjid al-Haram, because they could not travel safely to it. So when there's open warfare between people, especially the Meccans, of course, and it's the Quraysh that were doing this. Okay, the people of Quraysh were doing this, right? So that is, and they're in charge of the Masjid al-Haram, and that's, so if they're engaged in fighting, okay, at the time of the Hajj, right, then people aren't going to be able to go, right, and they're not going to feel safe to go, and so they don't go, and so in that way they are barring barring people from going to Masjid al-Haram, right? When they're supposed to be the custodians of it, they're the ones who are supposed to be more emphatic when it comes to keeping the sacred months. Okay, that as soon as the sacred months come, all right, those free around Hajj, they should stop all fighting, all right, in order to be able to host and allow the people who are coming to the sacred mosques to come and and complete the rite of Hajj. So here, the verse which talks about, they say, they ask you about the sacred month. يسألونك عن الشهر الحرام قتال فيه. And about fighting therein. Say, fighting therein is great sin, but averting people from the way of Allah, and this, sorry, I don't like the translation here, I didn't check it. يسألونك عن الشهر الحرام قتال فيه قل قتال فيه كبير. Fighting in it is big, and it's also a prevention. وصد عن سبيل الله وكفر به والمسجد الحرام. Okay. وإخراج أهله منه أكبر عند الله. I think that, because the way they've translated here, they're saying, but averting from the way of Allah and disbelief in Him and preventing access to Al-Masjid al-Haram and expansion, all of that is a greater evil in the sight of Allah. Well, yeah, it is all of that is a great evil, but I think that this part here, القتال فيه كبير, it's kabir, and it's also the fighting in it is big, and it's also صد عن سبيل الله. Okay, the fighting in the Masjid al-Haram is also, so there shouldn't be a but here. Okay, it's also averting people from the way of Allah, from Sabilillah, the way of Allah, the path to Allah. So that includes Hajj, right? To go and do the Hajj, right? And disbelief and it's ingratitude towards Him, not disbelief, ingratitude towards Him, and it's ingratitude towards Him, wal Masjid al Haram, okay, and also it's preventing. They've at least put that here in this translation, and preventing access to al Masjid al Haram, okay. And then it says, and the expulsion of its people from it is greater in the sight of Allah, right? So here it's showing us again that this is this fighting which is preventing, okay, the fighting in the Shahr al-Haram prevents people from going to the Masjid al-Haram, okay, and that's why the Shahr al-Haram are there, okay, and that for to allow ease of travel and peace for people to engage in the way of Allah. And the last thing that I want to mention is to keep in mind the lesson from Surah Al-Baqarah. So, the person who I was discussing with this with, like I said in the beginning, this Jahili mentality comes up where they're not going to accept a Quranic outlook on this. Okay? They already have their answer, and they just keep on saying, "No, tell me. I'm still waiting. Tell me where are the 4 sacred months in the Quran? Tell me, tell me, tell me." And in the end, it's like, who are you asking? You're asking me, or you're asking God, right? This kind of petulant way of, tell me what they are. No, it's not. It's got nothing to do with uruf. It doesn't matter about, if it was before Ibrahim, after Ibrahim. The number is not important. I want to know what are the 4 sacred months exactly. So tell me what they are. Well, ask that to God, right? Ask that to the one who revealed the Quran. Ask Allah, why isn't that in the Quran, right? Of course, it's just a way of being petulant and trying to again reduce the Quran in order to channel people towards narrations and hadiths. Okay, that's all it is. So what you should remember in this case is remember the other example of Jahil that we talked about, I think at the end of the last stream, which is, the Bani Israel with Musa, right? Where Musa says, "A'udhu billahi an akuna min al-jahilin." I seek refuge of Allah, that should be of the Jahilin. What were they doing? Okay, well, they just kept on asking, right? God told them to sacrifice a cow, and they kept on asking, "Tell us specifically which cow. We want to know which cow. Tell us its color. Tell us what it does. Tell us its age. Tell us that just obey what Allah has said. Okay, obey what Allah has said as it is. He has said 4 sacred months, or 4 of the months should be sacred. Make 4 of the months sacred. Right? Even if we did not know at all, if we had no information at all about the sacred months during of the Arabs during the Prophet's time or any of that. Okay, imagine we didn't have that at all. Okay, does that mean you're going to now ignore the Quran? Okay, no, you can still make 4 of the months sacred. Okay, and make them the 4 months where there'll be prevention of fighting, where there's peace. It's something which would be a great thing if it would happen now around the world, right? If the United Nations or could get together and say, okay, let's actually, this is a great idea in the Quran. Let's have it that there are 4 months in the year where all warfare should cease. Okay, periods of de-escalation. That would be fantastic, right? It doesn't have to be the 3 months of Hajj and Rajab. Okay, for Native American Indians. Okay, who lived for I don't know how long before any contact with Islam or anything. They could have had 4 sacred months as well, right? They could have 4 sacred, and it wouldn't have made any sense to have them the 3 months of Hajj that are happening in Arabia. Okay, when there's a complete disconnect. Okay, they're half a world away, nothing to do with it. But 4 sacred months there, okay, would have still benefited. Okay, would have benefited any intertribal warfare or anything like that. Anyway, I wanted this to be brief, so let's stop it there and see how we have in the chat. Assalamu alaikum. Adriana, good to see you again. What is the topic we're talking about? We're talking about the 4 sacred months, okay, and how to see them, their purpose, and how they are in the Quran, right? It's just an example because sometimes you might get asked this, if you have somebody who, for example, rejects, or I don't, of course, I've said this many times, I don't reject all of the history, all of the hadiths, or anything like that. But if you are somebody who it's perfectly valid to reject absolutely everything except the Quran, okay, you might be asked, okay, what are the 4 sacred months? The exact 4 sacred months. And so, I was just trying to explain here that it's the number that's important. What the Quran is really emphasizing is the number, that there should be 4 sacred months in which no fighting goes on, where people do not لا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم, where people should be extra careful not to commit injustice in them, okay, and especially fighting, okay, to de-escalate all fighting during those 4 months, okay. So it doesn't matter which 4 specifically, okay, that's not as important as that there should be 4, okay. That's basically what we were talking about. So let me see if anybody has any questions or anything else. Let me know. If somebody wants to come on briefly, you're more than welcome. The link is, of course, in the chat, pinned at the top. If anybody has any insights or anything they'd like to share from the Quran, remember, of course, that's the main purpose of the streams. Anybody, just come along, and if you have anything that you've gleaned from the Quran, please do share with us. Perfect dawah. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Good to see you. Oh, he's come on over here, Muji. Let's add him on.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you, Muji?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent, good.
Yeah, actually, I was going to have a debate tonight with Matt. I don't know if you saw it on.
With who, sorry?
His name is Matt.
His name is Matt.
M-A-T-T.
Oh, Matt. Okay.
Yes. And unfortunately, he got sick. It was on supposed to be on modern day debate.
Right. Okay.
Yes, and it was postponed to next week.
Okay.
I don't remember his name. His name is Matt something.
Yeah.
Let me check because I know just his.
What was the topic going to be about?
Yeah.
Or what is it going to be about?
Yeah, is Islam true? Yeah, the topic that you don't like.
I mean, those topics are just very. They're just too broad,
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, I don't like the debate format anyway, to be honest. But
I understand.
They become more of an entertainment thing than anything real. But
yeah, I understand.
At least it keeps topics of religion alive, I suppose.
His name is Matt Dillahunty, something. Yeah, Dillahunty. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, Matt Dillahunty. Yes. He's a pretty famous atheist, right?
Yeah, he's an atheist.
Yeah, he's very cordial. If
I heard
you're
that.
cordial with him, but so I think I've seen him talking with some people. He's very cordial, but at the same time, he does have teeth where he doesn't like if people become disrespectful. He will show his teeth then, which is fine, I suppose. But yes, I've heard of him. Yes, very eloquent speaker. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't. I've seen him, but I haven't watched any of his debates. But unfortunately,
how did you contact him for a debate?
No, I didn't contact him. I always contact MDD, Modern Day Debate, and he suggests me to debate this person or that person. Yeah, he's always James who contact me and say, "Would you like to have contact with this person on this subject or that subject.
He's the one who's stirring the pot, huh?
Yeah. Of course.
He's the one who's bringing it all together. Huh?
Yeah,
He's like
exactly.
those what they call those promoters, those fighting promoters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes,
they
yes.
promote fighters between each other. I bring this person, I'll get you to this person. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know
Okay.
that.
But anyway, he got sick, so the debate was cancelled, and it will be
You
next
mean
Friday.
postponed, right?
Yes,
Postponed,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Postponed, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be next Friday.
All right, excellent. All right, let me just deal with this question. And thank you, Brad. I'm glad you're benefiting from these streams, at least even just
Yes.
from the perspective, right? So
Mm-hmm.
nobody has to actually agree on all of this. So it's in here, yo, cuz, huh? Is the 4 sacred months about stopping war and bringing peace? Yeah, it's a period of to stop all fighting. So including if you're engaged in a just war, right? So let's say, for example, of course, in Islam, Quranically, you're not supposed to be the aggressors. You're never supposed to be the aggressors, right? قاتلوا في سبيل الذين يقاتلونكم, fight in the way of Allah against those who fight you. Okay, so fighting against those who are not fighting you, okay, that's not fighting in the way of Allah. Okay, so قاتلوا في سبيل الله الذين يقاتلونكم. Furthermore, لا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين, and do not aggress. Okay, do not be the aggressors. God does not love the aggressors, right? So that's the first thing. So let's say you're engaged in a war, right? And then the sacred month comes in. Okay, what you're supposed to do is just stop the fighting. Okay, that doesn't mean you've made peace and the war has stopped, but it is now an opportunity, right? You're stopping the fighting to allow a period of peace. Okay, let those who have who have lost people in the fighting mourn their dead. Let the hot-headed people cool down. Each side holds its hot-headed people down and says, no, we're stopping the fighting for the next month or next 3 months or however long. Okay, and perhaps even in that time there'll be an opportunity for a negotiation and to actually make peace. Right? This it's a way of stopping. Imagine having a 4-year long war. Okay, or 5-year long war, 10-year long war. By 10 years, after 10 years of war, people don't even know what the war started about, right? Because it's just been fighting, endless fighting, right? But if in each year 4 months where you stop all fighting, right, and people are allowed to move around freely, okay, and there's some peace in the land, and maybe the more intelligent from both sides can come together and work out an agreement. Okay, that's its purpose. Okay, its purpose is to help people remember the benefits of peace, right? So in the 4 sacred months, when that stopped, perhaps even the population, which always the majority of the population wants peace more than those who want the fighting. Maybe they could rise up and just say, no, enough. We're not going to continue the fighting, right? We want it to stop, right? It's an opportunity. It's a big opportunity for people to remember the value of peace and security, right? Because war, the Arabs had a lot of amazing poetry about war, right? Talking about how when war first starts, everybody has these dreams about honor and about being valiant in it, and I'm going to become, a hero and this, etc. But once, a little bit into the war, everybody's cursing it. Okay, everybody's looking at just what it's done. Okay, it brings all of the good things of life to a halt, right? Um, and so when you have, if that's happening, and then there's a period of peace, which God Himself has decreed, right? That there should be 4 months where you stop fighting. Okay, sacred months, right? It just brings that relief, right? And people remember again peace, and they say, okay, then why should we go back to war, right? If you've been forced to stop fighting for 3 months, right? And you've seen the horrors of the war before then, okay? After that 3 months, people will be very reluctant to go back to it, right? You say, okay, well, we've had 3 months now of peace. Why don't we just continue that? Okay, why don't we make an agreement, take some concessions? Okay, one side or the other take more concessions maybe in the interest of peace, and then that's it. Let it go, right? So that's the purpose of the sacred months. Right. Yeah, war nowadays is business, right, between politicians. Yeah, exactly. That's very true. Common people never want war, but they are the ones who pay the price. Well, it's true, but at the same time, I think common people get because now there's a whole machinery, right? Noam Chomsky and manufacturing consent, right? So the politicians and the media they manufacture consent, right? From the population. So you get people who are, they get played upon by for using emotions of patriotism and that sort of stuff. But it's definitely true.
Yeah, it's unfortunately always war has
Yeah,
been.
baby is talking. Yeah, she's over there now. Her favorite word now, of course, is no. Right? Tell her something. No, no, no. Yeah,
Yeah, I
sorry,
was
what were you
saying.
saying, Muji?
Yeah, I was saying that war is always between, usually between those who have interest, and like the leaders who never fight each other, and people who don't have any interest in that war and they have to fight each other and kill each other. Usually, of course, there are wars between good force and bad force as well. Like now in my home country, people fighting against the oppressive regime. So such a war also exists, yes. And
Mm.
sometimes we have to fight despite we don't like it, yes. Sometimes we have to do that
Yeah, of course.
against oppressors. Mm.
No, no, definitely. Right. Otherwise, they take over. They take over and they completely warp everything.
Okay. Uh,
Mm.
Adriana, Adriana say they put sanctions on the country, but the only ones who really suffers the consequences is the people. The
Yes.
rulers never. But I would like to say about this that one country that they have put sanction on is Iran, and some people say they are against these sanctions and say the same thing. They say that it is the people who suffer. I have to say that unfortunately they are wrong. As an Iranian who has been involved in politics in 43 years, I have to tell you that especially in Iran, it is mostly the regime that uh, is harmed by sanctions. That's why the regime tries doing all its best to get the sanction removed because they don't have money to pay their terrorists around the world. They don't have money to pay their forces. Okay, and the frustration will go up. Yes, people suffer as well, but the people already suffer because of the regime, and the money that comes to the country is usually going out to Hezbollah, to Yemen, to Syria, to Iraq, to all these, and their bank accounts in different countries as well. Okay, and they pay the most money to their troops inside to oppress people. So this is the regime that get affected mostly, and people get because the economy get bad, worse as well. People also get upset, and they start to make revolution against the government. So the sanction against the dictators in reality is the best way, is one of the most effective way to bring down the regimes. Like South Africa, it was only the sanction that brought down the apartheid regime. Okay, so sanction is required because you cannot say just because people might suffer, so let's pay hundreds of billions of dollars to the most, sponsor of international terrorism, which is Iranian regime. Let's pay them hundreds of billions of dollars because people might suffer. No, they use
Well, I
all
don't
this.
think you have to pay them. I don't think you have to pay them. But
Okay.
I mean,
Sanction is
I
that,
don't
yeah.
know. I don't know. I don't know much about the effects of exactly the sanctions. What is being sanctioned? What exactly is being curtailed?
Yeah.
What is? But I know it's definitely detrimental to the people. And yes, you can say okay, it's detrimental to the regime, but the regime, it's small compared to the people. The people are
No,
the
no, no.
more.
Yes, I have to tell you that uh, at least we know that the apartheid regime fell because of the sanction. Okay, and in Belgium, sorry, in
But
Austria.
what other things have what other
Yeah.
countries have fallen because of sanctions?
Yes,
And
like
even you say okay, um, they they fall because of the sanctions. Um, is the cost worth it? I remember that famous interview of somebody, I don't know who it was, which they were talking about the sanctions that were imposed on Iraq, where over 1 million Iraqi children had died because of it.
mhm.
And she was asked, as a U.S. Um, policymaker or foreign minister, I don't know what she was, asking, is it worth it? And they're saying, yes, we believe it's worth it.
All
I
right.
don't think it's worth it, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't think.
All right.
Um,
Yes, I don't know about the thing is that in case of Iraq, because Iraq didn't have any opposition, okay, so the sanction didn't actually work there. But countries like South Africa that had a great opposition, like Nelson Mandela, we know that it worked. And sanction against Austria when George Haider took the power. When the European countries they sanctioned Belgium, then the government was forced to resign. Okay, and in Iran is working as well. Unfortunately, Joe Biden came and eased the sanction. Now the regime, when Trump was in power, the regime was selling less than 800,000 barrels of oil. Now it has been increased to 2.5 million because Joe Biden doesn't like that this oppressive terrorist regime to fall, because they want that the regime spread, conflict in the region, and they can sell their weapons, keep the region under their control. But anyway, if the sanctions continue, because we Iranian people, we know that this sanction can bring down the regime, because we have strong opposition in Iran, and what we need is that the world stand on our side, not the regime side, and by
so you
giving them
think
money.
you think the majority of Iranians, they're happy with the sanctions? They want them to continue?
Uh, Look, even if ordinary people might think that, okay, the sanction will increase the prices, so they might think about their own interest, yeah, but they don't understand that if the regime is the one that is damaged mostly, and the regime will fall because of the sanction, then it is better that we bring down the regime as soon as possible, because we know that, my brother Khalid, we know that during Ahmadinejad, he was in power 8 years. Iran sold just $700 billion oil, and this money, I remember that $1.1 trillion was Iranian income from oil, gas, and other things. Okay, $700 billion of that was from oil. Not anything didn't change in our country. Everything even got worse. Okay, so that money could build a lot of countries. Okay, but in the case of Iran, they just were all money were stolen. Ahmadinejad, everybody, they were stealing those money, and they were sending those money to Yemen, to Syria, to other places. So people didn't get anything from that money. So this money that goes to the regime, they don't get to the people. So it's better that we stop them, so that yes, of course, even in revolution, people get killed. Okay, Iranian people get killed. Now, after this Mahsa Amini, 750 people have been killed. You cannot say, is it worth? Yes, it is worth to fight and bring down the regime once forever, so that we will have peace, we will have democracy. You know, if you don't suffer, you don't get, you know, the freedom. All revolution are costly. There are people get killed in the revolutions, but after that, if we get that freedom that we want, then that's yes, that's worth all this, you know, suffering and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I can see that. And again, these sort of topics are not my forte. I don't know much about
Mm.
it and all the details, the real details which go on. And there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda and all of these things. So, it's
Hmm.
not. But what I see is that, um, you know, I think it's you can't force a revolution onto people um, in a way that they are not willing for themselves. So sanctions are something which are forced from outside, right? They're something
No,
which is
no.
forced from
Let me tell
outside.
you. Yes,
It's not. Hold on, just a second.
yes,
It's
yes.
not. It's
Sorry.
not. It's not a revolution of the people, right?
Hmm.
It's
Okay,
it's external forces um,
okay,
trying to bring down a regime in the way that they want to bring it down,
okay.
even if the people inside they want to bring it down this way or they don't want to bring it down this way. That's a different story. If people do not want to fight for a revolution, then you leave them with the oppressors, right?
Hmm. Yes,
Um,
yes.
that's how I see it. It always has to be that people need to have that sort of decision,
Okay,
right? They
all
have
right.
to have that sort of like
Yes, yes.
integrity. It can't be just something forced. You can't
Oh,
force a
yeah.
revolution from outside onto people
Hmm.
in a method that they
Yes.
don't want or would not want.
No, just let me tell you, Brother Khalid, it's like this, that it's not that they don't want, it's just that they are afraid. People are afraid to go
Yeah,
out because they
it's
get killed. Yes, they
the
get killed.
same.
Yes.
It's the same thing. I mean,
No, no.
I think it's
No,
I
what I
think
mean that. No,
yeah, no, I
let me finish.
understand. I understand. I'm just
No,
saying
what I'm
that.
telling you is that people want to bring down the regime, but they are afraid of this regime because they have the money to pay for to their troops to keep them on the street and oppress people. But if the outside world put sanction on this regime, then the regime doesn't have money to spend on their troops to kill people. Even their troops turn their back to the regime. Okay, and then another thing is that, as I said, like in Austria, European Union, yes, people chose this far right government, okay, in Austria, but and people chose it. People want that government, but the other countries, European countries, also have the right to decide that we want to have this relationship with this far right organization. Is like a Nazi organization in a country, or no, we don't want to have relation with this government.
Yeah, I mean that
So
comes
this,
also to what do you mean by sanctions? If you mean by sanctions, that we will
no,
just
cut
not.
relation, cut
Yeah,
relation, that's all.
yeah, you
Yeah,
cut relations,
exactly.
but one problem with that is also you mobilize others to cut relations, right? So you're going to cut relations with somebody, and then there's also a problem where you start to bar other people from doing that. So it's almost like the boycott that happened to Banu Hashim, right, in
Mm.
Mecca. So they got boycotted, right? So they were all of Quraysh. They made a document where they said that we're not going to trade with Banu Hashim. We're not going to sell to them, buy from them, marry from them. They're not going to marry from us.
Mhm.
And so that was a very difficult time for them, right?
I don't
But
know
they got
about that. Yes, I don't know about those times. What I'm
yeah. I
talking
mean
about.
yeah, but I
Yes,
mean yeah.
I'm
This
talking
is what
about.
happened.
Yes,
Yeah,
our time.
I
Yes, our
know.
time.
But see,
And
what happened? What
yes.
happened with that is that Banu Hashim, one and all, stood behind, their chief Abu Talib, right?
Yes.
who refused to give up his nephew, the Prophet, from being killed, because basically that's what they said. All of Quraysh was saying, either we're going to continue this boycott until either Muhammad stops doing what he's doing, okay, or Banu Hashim themselves throw him out, basically disown him.
Okay. Yes.
Okay,
But
but
that's it.
Banu Hashim stood behind him, right?
Yes. Yes.
So when you have that sort of thing, so like I mean, again, it comes back to the idea. So let's say you're saying that they're afraid, people in the realm are afraid of being killed by the regime, but they want to do a revolution, but they're afraid of being killed. Okay, so it just comes back to the idea: are they happy to have it done by means of sanctions, right?
No.
If they are generally happy, yes.
No.
That's fine.
Look. My brother.
But
Is
if it's just going to be no, we don't want it. We don't want it by sanctions, and we don't want to fight for it, and we don't want this. Then, well, what can you do with people who will not fight for themselves?
okay. Yes. Look, brother Khaled, it's like this. That of course we would like that nobody get killed. We don't want sanction. Nobody suffer. But that sometimes things are not the way you want it, so it's not ideal. Okay, but it's not the way that you also think that, okay, let's not sanction, let's send hundreds of billions of dollars to this regime. Sending it means that when you buy and sell oil, buy oil, then you have to pay back the money. So this money that goes there for the oil, then they send it to Yemen. Okay, they smuggle weapons to Yemen, so they start a war there because they want to occupy Saudi Arabia. They send this money to their proxies in Iraq, and they kill Sunni Muslims in Iraq. They oppress people, and even Shia Muslims they are killing in Iraq. They send it to Syria, to Assad, kill people, and so on. They send it to Hezbollah to control that, Lebanon. And Lebanese are not, satisfied with the Hezbollah, especially the Sunni side. They are not satisfied with the Hezbollah having control there. So there are a lot of other, even Afghanistan, Iran was sending, weapons and money to Taliban so that they threw out USA from Afghanistan. And now we see what the situation Afghan people have under the Taliban. So these are the consequences of having having relation with such a regime, oppressive regime, and sending money to such a regime. Obama sent over $100 billion money to the regime, and those money all went to such a things. People didn't get any benefit of this money. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't have the answers for this. I don't know. I don't have all of the details about all of this stuff and all of these things you're mentioning. I don't know much about it. Yes.
Daddy. Okay. All right. Yes. Anyway, I do not disturb you anymore, my brother. Okay.
Let me deal with it. Come on. She escaped from the room. Nothing I can do about it. If I try to grab her, she'll just cry. Adriana is talking about.
Just want to say thank you very much, and inshallah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Inshallah,
anytime.
we can talk some other time. Take care, my brother.
No
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Yeah. So I think it's a disgrace what Zenith is doing to his people. Yeah. I mean, I'm very unaware of what's going on in world politics right now, to be honest. But surely I see all of this stuff. Sarah, stop. Okay. Okay, yes, Baba. All right, good. Back to the thing. When did the Arab calendar change? Because the months' names are related to seasons. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those the idea about the Nasi, right? So some of the I think Joseph from Qur'an centric talked a bit about that as well. The Nasi, he said that it's a month that was added, right? That used to be added, just like the Jews apparently do. The Jews add a month every few years in order to keep the months realigned, right? And that's how it should be done. In order for example, for Ramadan, if it was done that way, Ramadan would always fall around the August equinox, which would mean all around the world people will be fasting around the same amount. Okay, um, so I'm not sure about that. I mean, I don't see how historically that could have happened. How could that basically um, the whole ummah um, yeah, how could the whole ummah just suddenly forget which month it was and that there was a Nasi and had to be added and they forgot to add it? I don't see that, right? And from the verse, I mean, we looked at it here, right? This verse, it does not indicate to me any kind of the Nasi that some people are mentioning, that it's that it's a month that is required. Rather, the Nasi here is being criticized, right? It's been called ziyadat in kufr, right? It's an addition in kufr, right? And it's all about, in the end, all about reducing the number of what Allah has made haram. Whereas the Nasi, from the idea that people are describing, that this extra month has to be added in order to keep all the months within their proper seasons, that doesn't change the number of what Allah has made haram. Okay, inserting a Nasi month, if you call the a month that month in the sea, which is added every few years, that doesn't decrease the number of what Allah has made haram. Okay, instead, I think what the Nasi is here in this verse, it's clearly about making one of it's about making one of the sacred months halal. Okay, and reducing the number of of forbidden months in which fighting is forbidden. Okay, that's clearly what it seems to be here. So if there was this a missing month, which is supposed to be added the um, to realign the calendar, I don't think it's called in the sea or ever was called in the sea. So that's what I see about that. But in terms of what the when did the months change and why they'll probably just name that in the beginning. I mean, remember these names are not divinely revealed. The names of the months, and Arabs were primitive people really before, right? They were not people of writing, of calendar and stuff. So when they first decided to name the months, they just said, okay, then this month, they probably never even realized until they named their months. Okay, they probably never even realized that the months shift throughout the year. Okay, um, so they just named them according to the seasons. Okay, on that first year, and then the next year they carried on naming them like that, and the months got shifted, and that was that. I don't see, um, I don't see what exactly um, the month names are not any kind of revelation, right? They're not something which um, it's just something which was chosen by people. Okay, um, the months have to be 12, and 4 of them have to be sacred, and that's about it. Um, Nothing more than that. So, um, I've seen a few videos about this idea about the months being hit your head about the months being related to the seasons, and that since then it was changed, and it was Omar ibn Khattab who changed it. I don't see how that could have happened. Basically, you know, how could that have happened without there being a trace for it in the you know in the collective memory, right? In the same way, for example, Salah, right? I know there are people who don't think Salah is a physical ritual, um, but I don't see how that could have just, could have used, mass invented the whole ummah, um, sort of mass invented this form of Salah. okay, if it wasn't something which was done by the Prophet. They didn't have its origins in the Prophet. Okay, and it's also hinted at in the Quran, right? The Quran, when it talks about Salah, it does talk about ruku and sujood, right? So that's what I think about that. But yeah, but the takeaway from this presentation about the mobs is just again just to look at the what the Quran says about what it says, right, and um, not even want, let alone expect something else. Okay, so just as the Quran does not detail a physical method of salah, it does talk about the way that God wants salah to be done. The Quran does talk about that. I did a few video essays about that. About Surah Ad-Din, about salah. I never mentioned the verses in Surah Al-Ma'arij which are key. So in Surah Al-Ma'arij, which talks about the Musallin, who are the Musallin in God's sight, right? So the Quran heavily talks about what Salah is in terms of what God wants of Salah, right? So in terms of physically how you do a Salah, right? It's not important, right? It's not as important. It's better for you to pray physically the way, for example, Orthodox Jews pray, or a Buddhist prays, and do exactly, fulfill the requirements of being of the Musallin, as mentioned in the Quran. It's better for you to be like that than to pray exactly how the Prophet prayed perfectly, while abandoning all of the things which God mentions in the Quran about Salah, right? So our focus has to be on what God has made the focus. Right? Those are the things which are important. Okay, and in the same way, when it comes to the sacred months, right? The sacred months, what's important is the number, because that's what God decided to mention. Okay, all right. I think I'll end it there and try to get this kid back to sleep. Yes, the ball. Yes, the ball. Okay. All right, okay. Making a bit of a ruckus, so let's stop it there. Thanks you a lot, everybody, for coming. Jazakallah khair, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Oh, damn.